Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. Well, today is the second version of Kohberger is Creepy as Hell. And, it made me start remembering about that incident. You remember early on in the case where reports came out at a bar that he was at in Pennsylvania? Well, I went and looked that up again, and it's amazing how similar it is. So look at this. Jordan Serelnek, 34, the owner of Seven Siren Brewing Company in Bethlehem. And this is an article from January 31st, 2022, the day after he was arrested. Jordan Serelnek, 34, the owner of Seven Sirens Brewing Company in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, said Kohberger had gone by himself to the brewery a few times and would sit at the bar. The exchanges at the brewery happened months ago, possibly when the suspect was a student at DeSales University in Center Valley, less than 6 miles south of Bethlehem, Serelnek said. Kohberger received his bachelor's from DeSales in 2020 and completed graduate studies there in June 2022, according to the university, which is interesting because he was already accepted to go to the Pullman, Washington graduate doctorate program there, and he had already purchased the K-bar knife and balaclava in December. I think it was March and January. In January he purchased the balaclava, and March he purchased the K-bar knife, and then just weeks after that he actually was already applying for that position at the Pullman Police Department, but he didn't get that job. It's interesting though that while he was applying in Pullman, the knife sheath and balaclava are just sitting over there. He already owns those things. They're at his house. The brewery sometimes had unusual characters, which was not out of the ordinary, Serelnek said. But he remembered Kohberger from some interactions he had with female patrons and staff. Serelnek said Kohberger didn't do anything in front of him or management, but he said he would make comments under his breath or if only one person was working at the bar. In the bar system, so in their system at this particular bar, staff had added notes that would pop up when his ID was scanned, Serelnek said. Staff put in there, hey, this guy makes creepy comments. Keep an eye on him. He'll have 2 or 3 beers and then just get a little too comfortable, he said. Serelnek said Kohberger would ask the female staff or customers who they were at the brewery with, like who are you with here, and where they lived and what their work schedule was. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, he said if the women blew him off, he would get upset with them a little bit, noting that one time he called one of his staff members a disparaging term when she refused to answer his questions. Kohberger had not returned to the brewery since Serelnek approached him months ago about the complaints from his staff, the owner said. I went up to Kohberger and I said, hey, Brian, welcome back. We appreciate you coming back. I just wanted to talk to you real quick and make sure that you're going to be respectful this time and we're not going to have any issues, he said. And he was completely taken back. He was shocked that I was saying that, and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. You totally have me confused. Kohberger had 1 beer and left, he said, and he also never went back. So it's amazing how similar this is to what the students and colleagues of Kohberger at Pullman, Washington experienced with Kohberger. Very similar things. And it's interesting how, I think he's obviously, it seems like he's got behavioral issues. He is, socially awkward and doesn't really know how to act. Maybe that he's even associated with that one girl he went on a date with on Tinder, and he said, hey, you have nice birthing hips. After she tried to hide from him in the bathroom and say that she was sick, he left the house and then sent her a text saying, hey, you've got nice birthing hips. So that just sort of fits his MO, just really awkward, creepy stuff. And this is just a short snippet from one of the interviews in the Idaho State Police document dump that they just put out there. She did recall one other staff pulled her aside and made her aware of a possible issue with him stalking another member of the staff. An incident took place where he asked out the other staff member and had followed that individual outside to her car. A report was filed with the Office of Civil Rights. So, I mean, Kohberger was, he'd only been there, 4 months, and just absolutely was going downhill. Now, sometimes it gets worse and worse if, one coworker tells another one, and then people start seeing your behavior a specific way, but it seems like that's just the way he is, his behavior at the bar and at this college seemed to marry up perfectly. Here's another one that's much longer. We'll go over this one. So here is another interview right here. She first met Kohberger when he came into the office to meet with her. Shortly thereafter, Kohberger began coming into the office nearly every day to talk. This occurred during business hours. Kohberger's conversations became personal instead of focused on his studies or work as a teacher's assistant. Kohberger had an office downstairs but did not really have a reason to be in her office area. On some days, she would be working alone from 3 o'clock to 5 p.m., which was normal closing hours. Kohberger began coming in there seemingly to talk to her. She would try to focus on her work, but Kohberger would remain whether or not she interacted heavily with him. That's wild, right? He just would sit there and sit there and sit there. On one occasion, she was downstairs and came back to the office to look up. Kohberger was in the office. She informed him that she was closing the office, and Kohberger walked outside with her. Kohberger asked her if she wanted to get coffee, so asked her out on a date. She declined, saying her girlfriend was here to pick her up, and walked away. She thought this was inappropriate, as they were both students. This was her first uncomfortable or strange interaction with Kohberger. She told her bosses about the incident. They told her they did not want her alone with him and informed her of several resources she could use, such as having a security escort or simply leaving. They also told her she was not the first person to have problems with Kohberger. Kohberger continued to come to the office when she was there alone. On one occasion, he would stand directly behind her chair as she was working. Kohberger remained directly behind her for a while and did not move until another advisor came into the room. Only then did Kohberger move away. She was informed staff had talked to Kohberger as many as 5 times about his behavior. After about the 3rd meeting, Kohberger did not come into the office as much to socialize. She would see Kohberger in the hallway and said he would corner her and attempt to conversate. She would try to not engage, but Kohberger would attempt to force a conversation. She clarified that Kohberger physically cornered her, standing in a manner where she could not leave without running into him. She described this as scary, especially when she was alone. She recounted another incident where she saw Kohberger walking outside as she was locking up, and then Kohberger made eye contact with her when she looked out, which seems strange because you would have to be looking directly at the window where she worked to manage eye contact. Kohberger entered the building as she was leaving. She hurried into the bathroom to hide and avoid contact with Kohberger. When she thought about it later, she hid as if on instinct due to how uncomfortable contact with Kohberger had become. Kohberger had a reputation for being very homophobic. Sometimes her boss would take her home so she would not have to walk by herself or take the bus. She became concerned because of how many precautions she perceived were being taken because of Kohberger. She recounted an incident in which her neighbor saw someone very close outside her window and told her to make sure to lock the door. She did not know who that person was, but learned she lived very close to Kohberger. She learned from professors that Kohberger was fired as a teacher's assistant after the fall 2022 semester was over. And I just guarantee you that was Kohberger looking through her window. That's absolutely his behavior. And it's amazing all of the other people that were noticing things, even Kaylee, seeing somebody up in the woods, a shadowy figure. I think these are all Kohberger. I mean, it's just the timing, all being around the time he's there. And I wonder if these same people have any of these things happening to him now, and I bet no. She described all the interactions she had with Kohberger as uncomfortable, except for the very first time she saw him. She saw Kohberger almost daily until winter break. The conversation Kohberger would start with, she were not necessarily in an educational or professional context. She perceived the conversations happened only for Kohberger to be around her. She only knew of one time where Kohberger's behaved differently than he normally did. Kohberger needed to talk to her who was in the office with, I don't know, there's too many blacked out spots here, and was speaking, and Kohberger was waiting near the door. She thought Kohberger wanted to speak to him. He declined this and continued speaking with her. Kohberger came into the room and sat in a chair, but nobody acknowledged him. When he realized this, he became angry and stormed out. She described Kohberger as very angry, as if he had built up a fury or rage. It was her opinion that Kohberger became angry because he was ignored and nobody acknowledged him. He sounds a hell of a lot like Elliot Rodger, though, does in his manifesto, if you read it. The things that Kohberger seems to be angry about are very similar. I asked her if Kohberger acted any differently after the homicides in Moscow. After thinking about it, she said it was right around the same time that Kohberger stopped coming into the office as much. Prior to that time, she had described Kohberger as somewhat arrogant and held her head high when describing him. After that, she said Kohberger kept to himself more and seemed to be less interactive. When she described Kohberger after the homicides, she kept her head down. Kohberger did not disclose personal details or anything about himself when he would talk to her. There was one instance where he may have placed a hand on her shoulder, but it was during a conversation and not to physically control or assault her. Specifically, she thought it was strange that Kohberger seemed to know her schedule and intentionally encounter her. She described herself as a gay woman and thought it was also strange because she had previously told Kohberger that she had a girlfriend. This did not seem to deter him. Of all the students she had interacted with, Kohberger was the only one that made her feel uncomfortable. This report is a summary of the interview. For further details, refer to the audio recording. I mean, that'd be interesting to listen to these audio files for sure. And here's another incident where Kohberger perhaps was stalking one of the individuals that he worked with. On December 4th, 2022, she found snow footprints leading to the back window of her apartment. Whoever had left the footprints had backtracked within the same tracks. She and her fiancé installed security cameras in response to finding the footprints. She forwarded the photographs of the footprints to Detective Lehman. She provided her address. Near the interview conclusion, they requested to speak with, I think, the fiancé by phone about an incident at the apartment. He said he was playing video games when someone jiggled the door handle to the apartment, and after getting up and looking outside, no one was there. He said this incident occurred between October 26th and December 9th, 2022. Now, I don't know if that's her fiancé or somebody else, perhaps in that same apartment, but isn't that interesting? So this is another one of the individuals that law enforcement interviewed, that Kohberger worked with. He had constant interaction with her, just like the previous one. And then there's these footprints out in the snow looking through her window. And what do you think the odds are that all of these people have these random things happening right when Kohberger's around? Or is it just Kohberger himself? All right, let's go on to the next one. On January 4th, 2023, ISP Detective Schwecke and I met with, who is the owner of in Pullman, Washington, informed us that November 18th, 2022, which is only 5 days after the homicides, Kohberger came into the office, I guess, and changed the title and vehicle registration from Pennsylvania to Washington in his Hyundai Elantra. She was able to provide us with security camera footage, including audio of the transactions with her clerk. She had a receipt of the transaction. Detective Schwecke and I interviewed her at a place. The following is a summary of the interview. She remembered Kohberger coming in to switch his plates from Pennsylvania to Washington. She recalled Kohberger was a super nice guy and very charming. She even added him to their Christmas card list. So that time, he didn't come off as awkward. However, she says Kohberger wore gloves the entire time he was in, but didn't think it was abnormal due to the cold temperatures they were experiencing at the time. The reason Kohberger was switching his title and vehicle registration to Washington was that he was a graduate student at WSU and he needed to get residency. So that's interesting. He's wearing gloves. We've heard other people say that he had a cut. I think it was on his left hand, left ring finger. All right, and then look at this one and another one. On January 13th, 2023, they interviewed another person at Washington State University. The following was the summary. So this is just part of it. She said she never talked to Kohberger. She saw him one time at a holiday potluck right before winter break, and once briefly going the other direction in the hallway. She did not interact with him at the potluck, but overheard him say, "It doesn't look like there's anything I can eat." At the potluck, Kohberger was dressed in all black and wearing black gloves. She noted it was cold outside, but everyone else had removed their outdoor gear. So it's interesting. Was he hiding some scratches and the cuts on his hand again in that one? It's pretty, that's absolute possibility. So this is just another reference to gloves regarding Kohberger. In reference to the Moscow homicides, he would say that it was horrible. In discussing whether the murder would be caught, he said maybe it was a one and done type of thing. She said Kohberger sometimes discussed the evidence left behind at crimes and how an offender might mitigate against that by wearing gloves. These statements were related to her research work and not specific to the Moscow homicides. She said he did not discuss vehicle surveillance or weapons that could be used, but did talk about the time of day that offenders might choose. And this is something I found. So this is at the house, the 1122 King Road. They actually found blue-colored latex gloves located in trash can of floor 2 bathroom. That's crazy, right? Why would anybody in that house have blue latex gloves? What if Brian Kohberger had 2 sets of latex gloves on, and then after the homicides, he took the outer set off and put those into the trash can, leaving now a relatively clean set of gloves on, so that when he gets back to his car, he can open the door relatively safely, have a clean set of gloves on underneath, and then take off all the other clothing and then fold that up into a bag and then take off, probably dramatically reducing the exposure of blood inside that vehicle. But what do you guys think of that? Isn't that interesting? That one of the items located in the second floor bathroom right next to Xana Kernodle's room, which I guess we could probably, right here, that's a good way to look at it. Just a little bit back from that. That's Xana Kernodle's room. So there's the bathroom, and this is where Xana Kernodle's bedroom was, right here. So, you know, what do you guys think? Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. All right, you guys, that's today's update. Hope you guys found it interesting. If you guys could hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.